Every season of Survivor is a story. There are main characters, sidekicks, comic reliefs, and villains. A good season of Survivor tells a compelling story. It will grip you and have you rooting for someone and against someone else. You will want to watch episode after episode to see what happens next until it all finishes with a, hopefully, satisfying conclusion. Each story that we look at together will go through one character's journey from beginning to end. From the time that they are introduced until they inevitably get their torch snuffed or win the game, we are going to look at every character moment and strategic move to determine whether they were a hero or a villain, and whether they were a good or bad strategist. And with that, welcome to Once Upon an Island. Now, for reference, we are only going to be observing what the TV show is showing us, or what story is being told through the show. No future seasons will be mentioned, as the story and characters here have no idea about what happens in those future seasons. All character moments and strategic moves are interpreted with the mindset of what the story is trying to tell us. And before we start, I want to thank you all for watching what I make and ultimately supporting what I do here with liking, commenting, and sharing. For only a few bucks a month on Patreon, you can pick what videos I make, watch all of this channel's content early, chat with other fans of the show, and even get exclusive videos every month. With that, let's jump into another epic story.
39 days, 20 people, 1 survivor.
Ian Rosenberger, a 23-year-old Dolphin trainer from Ambridge, Pennsylvania, was a castaway on Survivor's 10th season, Survivor Palau. By the time he finished playing, he was beloved by all and yet confused many, as he made a moral decision that baffled many viewers and some still say was the worst decision of all time. So how did this lovable, goofy Dolphin trainer win everyone over and yet have the moral dilemma of the season? Let's find out. Survivor Palau takes a page out of Pearl Island's book and has Jeff rolling up on a speedboat saying, "Hey guys, guess what? The game starts now and all you have are the clothes on your back, and the first 2 to make it to the shore win individual immunity. Okay, bye."
But I suggest you make a decision and start acting now, because this game is on. Good luck.
As all 20 players then paddle to the shore, along the way, 2 players decide to jump in and try to outswim the boat with still a mile or so to go to the shore. It's a very baffling decision. Thankfully for Ian, he does not make this mistake. Upon the boat arriving on the shore, Ian races to the immunity necklace and nabs it pretty easily from his male counterparts. It helps that while on the boat ride, he smartly traded places with someone in the back of the boat so he would be closer to begin with, and James of course claims he's pretty fast.
Ian, he was the first one up there. Get his ass up there. Skinny boy, I'm telling you, that's a fast little booger.
Since everyone is stuck with the clothes on their back and nothing else, some of them begin modifying what they have to be better suited for island life, and Ian tells us that he also modified his clothes like the girls, but is sparing us seeing this for this interview.
Oh gosh, they're just chopping things off left and right. Pants are falling off and shirts are getting tied up. You know, I had mine tied up earlier, but decided to stop for now.
Though we do not directly see Ian make any alliances on the beach during the first day of this madness, we do see Tom offer Stephanie, the girl who jumped off the boat earlier, an alliance that includes Tom, Ian, and Katie. And the way he's talking about it sounds a lot like he's already discussed this with Ian, which is very important here because there's already an alliance forming and it's a good one.
Ian, me, you. Just an early something here.
I'm in with that, with you guys, because we would be strong.
The whole thing can be reshuffled, but
yeah, absolutely.
The next morning, Jeff emerges from the woods and says, "Hey guys, guess what? Another twist for you. The 2 people who have individual immunity are now picking the new tribes. 2 of you will not be selected though. Ian gets that first draft pick and has to choose a female, so he picks Katie, which must mean these 2 form some sort of connection we are unaware of, since Stephanie looks like the stronger female of the 2 and is also part of that 4-person alliance that Tom talked about earlier.
Katie.
Jolanda, you're picking a guy.
Katie picks Tom, and then Bobby John of Oolong throws a wrench and everything and picks Stephanie. Unfortunately, she is on the other tribe. However, by the end, the Oolong tribe looks strong while Karor is clearly the older tribe. Ian says this is what he wanted though.
I'm altogether very, very happy. I wanted a wise tribe. If I had the opportunity to pick, you compare the tribes and you see a definite difference.
An interesting stat to keep in mind is that the average age of Oolong is 29, while Karor's average age is about 36. Oolong only has 2 players over the age of 30, and Karor has 5. It reminds me a bit of how the tribes were selected in Thailand when Chuigon were clearly older but ended up steamrolling Sukjai, the much younger tribe. Either way, Karor looks weaker. Now the 2 players who are unfortunately eliminated are Jonathan and Wanda. This is truly not a big deal in the grand scheme of things, but Wanda is amazing, and I am now going to show all her highlights from her time on Survivor.
We're gonna build a fort gladly. We are survivors! Survivors! We're going to be the survivors. We've got the energy and heroes we will be again. Have a good one, guys.
Is that completely unnecessary? Of course. Was it totally worth it? Yes. Anyways, in the first immunity challenge, Karor pulls a rabbit out of their hat and stomps Oolong by making wise decisions and by working together instead of fighting like Oolong does.
Karor wins immunity and reward!
Jeff then offers Karor a choice. You can stick with the beautiful beach that you already know and love so far that has a cave nearby and is just beautiful to look at, or you can pick a completely new camp, sight unseen, and Karor ends up picking the new camp, and this is not a great decision.
Well, why see a beach we already saw? Let's go see something new.
You're gonna take your chances. Give up what you know for the unknown.
On their way to the new camp, another surprise happens as they accidentally flip over the boat and lose their fire supplies at the bottom of the ocean.
All of the supplies to make fire were in this heavy steel container that went straight down. It was just like, did this really happen?
And that is it for the premiere of Survivor Palau. So far, we have seen glimpses of Ian being a dorky goofball who seems to already be in the favor of his tribe physically and socially, considering he is the youngest at 23 and a dolphin trainer, which means he will be great for any challenges that happen in the water. Despite being on the older tribe, they have already won a decisive immunity challenge, so it seems like age will not be the big factor that they thought, at least not so far. Ian has an uplifting, positive, if not a bit awkward personality that is endearing and will be entertaining to watch for as long as he lasts. Episode 2 begins, and the question on all of our minds is, did the new camp work out for Karor? Is it better than the old one? Surely it has to be, since it was offered to the winning tribe.
Oh my god, there were 3!
Oh, they're like walking around. I'm not afraid of anything. See? They're right there.
Get out!
So it's not as great as they were hoping. In fact, it seems like it's much worse than what Oolong has. At the reward challenge, Karor tells Jeff that they lost their fire in the ocean, and Jeff's like, oh, what did you do? But Ian says they're underdogs, don't worry, they'll find that fire.
We capsized yesterday.
We just kind of lost it.
You lost your fire.
We're gonna find it. We're the bad news bears, man. Our back's against the wall and we're coming on strong.
Unfortunately for Karor, they lose reward.
Karor with 4. If he can hang on, and he does it. Oolong wins reward.
Back at camp, Tom and Ian get to work on recovering those fire supplies, and it clearly takes a lot of time and effort to do so, but by the end, they succeed.
Getting the box and having it was like, I mean, it was like when running a marathon and winning first place. Once we got it under the boat, it was like, man, it was like hold on to a big piece of gold. It's one of the happiest moments of my life.
Another success for Karor, and speaking of success, they go on to win immunity, and Ian is safe once again.
Karor! Yeah!
Episode 3 is fairly quiet for our protagonist. Unfortunately for him and Karor, they lose reward again, but at camp they are on the hunt for snakes. A few of the players express how dangerous this is, but the thrill of the hunt doesn't stop Tom and Ian from doing it anyways. But it is clear that despite being a part of this, killing snakes isn't really Ian's thing.
I'm sorry, buddy.
Ian chopped the snake's head off. He was so cute, like the whole time he's all, sorry buddy, sorry man, we just gotta do it man, sorry.
Tom then realizes that hey, instead of eating these snakes which don't have a ton of meat, they could be using them to lure sharks to them so they can hunt them. While Ian once again helps Tom try to hunt now sharks with crudely pointed sticks, he says the sharks really give him the heebie-jeebies.
Hey Jen, you wanna chop up some more snake? They really were close. They were wily. Close enough to make you nervous, like they come straight at you and make you a little bit heebie-jeebie.
The immunity challenge is a grueling one as both tribes try to chase the other one down while carrying heavy bags that weigh 20 pounds each. If one tribe member drops out of the challenge, they have to hand their bag off to someone else, so no matter what, the same amount of weight is being carried around the course. After a while, Karor and Oolong are whittled down to 3 members each, and slowly but surely, Karor catches up and wins immunity.
Immunity at stake. Come on! Karor wins their 3rd immunity challenge in a row.
Episode 4 has both tribes receiving a mysterious note that tells them to designate one team member to do a task that they won't know about until later. But despite Kobe volunteering to be selected, Tom strong-arms the group into picking Ian instead, and this not only shows the trust Tom has with Ian, but Kobe points out how tribal lines are the clearest they have ever been, and Ian is in the majority.
I would do it.
I would do it.
I'll speak right out. I don't have to do a vote. Ian, you've made many good decisions. You've been the team leader here. You want to go, I say you go.
By picking the team leader, the separation of the group was just obvious. Katie, Jennifer, Greg, Ian, and Tom are one unit, so that makes 5 against 4.
As it turns out, the mysterious task is to lead their tribe in the next reward challenge, and they are tasked with building a bathroom. Whoever builds the best one wins Survivor production coming out to their camp and making them the best shelter the show will have ever seen so far. Ian tells us that he is perfect for this role as he gives us a little backstory on how he grew up.
Ian, for today's reward challenge, your tribe is going to build a bathroom. 2 sections, toilet area and a shower and a wash area.
Jeff gave me the choice to pick 6 tools out of this toolbox. It was a difficult decision, but my dad owns a construction company and I grew up on a farm, so it worked out okay.
While working on the bathroom, Willard points out that he witnesses how Tom and Ian are sure to give every member of the tribe a compliment once a day. To be clear, Willard sounds a little pessimistic about this, but it is actually a great social move and just something nice to do in general.
Oh, Willard, we couldn't have planned it better ourselves. Look at that notch.
If you watch Tom and Ian, they're very careful not to go through the day without saying in front of the group something good about everybody in the group.
Karor does end up making the more solid of the 2 bathrooms, and upon Ian discovering that they won, check out this blink and you miss it dance from him.
Looks like a Home Depot vote.
Yeah! Yeah! All right!
At the immunity challenge, Karor wins, and that is now 4 in a row, really decimating Oolong strategically and mentally.
And he got him! James is in! Karor wins their 4th straight immunity challenge!
Episode 5 comes along, and some of the dynamics of who is who and what is revealed as Jen and Greg are having a flirtmance that, no matter how much they act like is no big deal, clearly has them attached to the hip strategically.
In the shelter, people have teamed off, and Jennifer and Greg have definitely teamed off. I mean, Jennifer had her hand on Greg's stomach, rubbing on it. I mean, it's very obvious. And they won't admit how close they're getting, but we can all see it. They gotta think we're stupid if we can't tell that they're together.
At the reward challenge, Jeff drops a surprise on everyone when he says,
win or lose, both tribes are going to tribal council tonight. Both tribes will vote one tribe member out.
Karor does end up eking out the reward challenge win thanks to Ian though.
Ian coming back with the winning bottle. Karor wins reward.
Back at camp, Ian is delighted that they won beef stew for the reward for their tribe, and this means he doesn't have to go out fishing today and can just sit back and relax, and he sings a little song. Kobe calls him crazy.
I don't have to go clamming today. I don't have to go play in the bay. Who brought this? Whose friend is it? Don't have to go and find seashells. Poor Oolong is in the survivor hell.
You look crazy.
I can imagine this behavior is probably a lot more common from Ian than what we are seeing due to Koror's dominance so far. They haven't really had the screen time of Oolong, so we haven't been able to learn a lot so far about them. But what we do learn in this episode is that Willard is the easy first person to vote out since he is the oldest, weakest, and doesn't even attempt to do his fair share of camp chores, which does matter to the tribe apparently. Ian is not even considered to be a target for anyone.
He's out, right? Yeah,
Is it Willard then?
Yep.
You're right. As far as the team goes, Willard's been dragging the most.
We then witness a little side conversation with Greg and Kobe that shows how everything is not fine and dandy for Ian strategically though, as he talks to Kobe about flipping on Tom and Ian down the line since their bond is strong and unbreakable.
Him and Jennifer want to make a secret alliance to the top 4 with me and Janu. And they want to pick everybody else off, including Tom and Ian.
And Tom and Ian are really just strong, you know, and that bond's just too tight, and there's some sneak, you know. Jen and I feel like we're on the outside of that alliance.
At Koror's first ever tribal council, they're catching up Jeff on what everyone's roles are at camp, and we learn that Ian is known as the provider of food, a good role to have.
Katie, who's leading this tribe right now?
At challenges, Tom definitely is a leader. If you're looking at leader as someone that provides food, that's Ian.
And then in a vote that surprises no one, Willard is voted out 8-1.
Willard, the tribe has spoken.
Oolong then rolls into tribal for their episodic beatdown, and when the food is revealed to Koror, Ian cannot contain his excitement as he enjoys the feast and really rubs salt in the wounds of Oolong.
Bread and root beer.
Get excited, Tom.
Oh, I am.
Oh, don't be bashful, Tom. Don't be bashful. I'm a skinny man.
Episode 6 is quiet for Ian, but despite that, it is actually loud for everyone as they are going through a really bad storm, possibly the worst one of the season, and Ian cannot help but make a joke.
You a little worried? Yeah. This isn't gonna go anywhere. There's no way. I'd like to see them try.
Koror then wins immunity again. It's mind-blowing how much they're winning immunity, and that brings us to episode 7 where we see Ian's abilities as a provider of food. It's on clear display as he carries a comically large clam into camp that nets them all a bunch of meat.
Ian comes out with the biggest clam. It was like the birth of Venus. It was the biggest clam you've ever seen. You could stand inside of it.
I'd say we probably had 6 or 7 pounds of meat. So everybody had almost a half a pound of meat.
However, this big catch is soon brushed under the rug as Tom then goes out and kills a shark all by himself with a machete. It's very impressive, but now Ian feels like, how can he ever one-up Tom?
You try to be the provider. All you try to do is bring in enough food for the tribe, and then somebody has to come along and one-up the hell out of you. I got a big giant clam, and then Tom came back and got a shark. So I guess the next step for me is to get like a humpback whale or something and bring it in.
Koror continues their unheard of dominance and wins reward, followed by winning immunity, which just keeps killing Oolong as they will now be down to only 2 members after this tribal council. Episode 8 sees yet another win by Koror as they net themselves reward, and this excites Ian to no end again as he does yet another goofy dance.
Congratulations.
That's just got a thing. I'm getting the dirt up.
Ian then talks to Tom and says, hey, we need to look out for Greg and Jen because if they want to, and they probably want to, they could flip on us and turn this whole game around.
Greg and Jen, they're part of the alliance, but I'm still worried about them switching over and trying to pick Tom and I off. They're 2 votes strong and it makes it a threat. I think they're definitely using their relationship to a strategic advantage. So we know going into it, you know, that we're gonna need to take one of them out eventually. We're all family, but there's a business side to it too, so we are on the verge of utter ridiculousness.
But as it turns out, this is not something you need to worry about quite yet as Koror wins immunity again, completely sweeping Oolong and never ever losing immunity for the first time in Survivor history.
Koror is right. Koror wins immunity again. Yeah.
Episode 9 begins and we learn that Kobe has been in a real negative mood as of late, and Janu has kind of been lying around being a sad sack who seems a bit sick for quite a while now, and the story is making it clear to us that these are Koror's first 2 targets for the next time they go to tribal council.
Kobe and Janu have been pains in the asses for the past 3 or 4 days. Janu does nothing. She lays in the hammock all day. She's like the dysfunctional aunt that lives in the attic. Kobe got kind of this attitude to him, and really he's become the powder of the tribe. And it's really getting annoying.
In a little bit of a pleasant surprise, Stephanie, the girl who jumped out of the boat first, and the last remaining member of Oolong, arrives at the Koror camp to join them. It isn't officially a merge, but the individual game has now finally begun.
All of a sudden, Stephanie shows up from Palau, which was a sight for sore eyes. having somebody new in town was like, it was like, you know, a guest, you know.
Oh my God.
Since the game is now individual, everyone gets to celebrate, and they do just that by getting to have local Palauan men come to their camp and teach them how to fish these waters. However, these Palauans say that a couple people need to hang back and catch some bait so that they can use the bait to catch fish. Kobe volunteers himself and Ian, but Tom wants Ian actually to go out with him to fish. This causes Kobe to get very upset, which results in him pouting and walking off. Ian tries to resolve the matter, but it clearly doesn't matter. Kobe is too far gone.
No, y'all got fish, seriously.
Learn. Okay. Kobe, do you want to come and learn to fish? Kobe got kind of huffy about the whole thing and, you know, complained that he was getting split off from the group again. It was just, he was being a pain in the ass. Like, come on.
Now, this would hurt Ian strategically if Kobe held any power in the tribe, but he doesn't. He does, however, take the opportunity to spill to Stephanie everything he knows about what is going on and who is aligned with who. For all intents and purposes, he is pretty much dead on with his information, which does expose where Ian is in this game.
So here's the main alliance. Ian, Tom, Katie, Jennifer, Greg. The 5 of them.
Okay.
Karen, Janu, and I are on the outskirts. Tom and Ian them really like you, but Jennifer and them are threatened, so I don't know which way they're gonna go.
But despite this very valuable information she learned that she probably should keep to herself, she immediately instead dumps it all to Jen, Katie, and Tom, and he does his best to work things out to smooth things over with her and let her know that she is still valued and still considered to be a member of the alliance she made on day one. It's a good thing Ian is aligned with this guy.
You're not the dead man walking here. There's other people who are leaving before you. 4 of us.
I'm so excited to still be back here.
Ian and Katie,
Do they still feel the same way?
They're gonna look out for you.
The immunity challenge is all endurance, as each person has to stand on a perch, and whoever lasts the longest wins immunity. Along the way, Jeff offers various food items to tempt people to drop, and Ian says there's one food item he would like in particular, and don't worry, he'll do something to earn it.
Chocolate sundae.
Oh, peanut butter.
I would take my clothes off with some chocolate and peanut butter on it.
Nobody wants to see that, Ian.
A pretty funny callback to 4 seasons ago with the Amazon. Ian doesn't need immunity though, and he jumps when offered chocolate chip cookies, and at the end of the challenge, Tom wins.
Listen up. 15 chocolate chip cookies and 15 seconds. 4 people in. Wow. Tom wins the first individual immunity.
At Tribal Council, when Ian goes to vote, he says,
Buddy, it's like being in the mafia. It's business, not pleasure. It's just your turn to get whacked. You're bad for business.
And in a 7-to-1 vote, Kobe is voted out and is the first member of the jury.
Kobe, the tribe has spoken.
Episode 10 is quiet for Ian, and frankly, as long as Stephanie is around, there isn't as much screen time for everyone else. At the immunity challenge, Jeff drops a surprise on everyone when he says that whoever drops out of this challenge first will be living on an island alone for the night that they're calling Exile Island, a new beach where they will have to fend for themselves with no help.
One more thing. Today's challenge also reveals how you handle fear. The first person to bail on this challenge will face the ultimate test of fear. You'll be taken to a new beach and abandoned there tonight to live on your own.
It doesn't take long before Janu drops out first, and through the power of editing, it looks like pretty much everyone except for Stephanie is laughing at her when this happens, which only annoys Jeff Probst.
Doesn't seem like a lot of love lost with these guys. They don't seem too concerned about you tonight.
That's
not true at all. Not true at all.
You know what? I'm sitting here asking her if she knows how to make fire, and you guys are making jokes like you're at open mic. You tell me, what am I supposed to think?
The challenge eventually comes down to Tom and Ian, as most challenges do, and by the end, Tom keeps a cooler head and beats Ian for immunity.
That's it! Tom wins immunity!
Back at camp, Tom, Ian, and Greg all agree that Stephanie needs to go next. Her story of surviving Oolong and then surviving Karora would be too strong for anyone to beat at Final Tribal Council, therefore she's unbeatable and she needs to be gone.
I just feel like it's a story developing that we need to put an end to. Stephanie's story has been continuing and continuing, and so you can just see it all coming together. Stephanie conquers Oolong, then comes in and conquers Karora, and we want to all prevent that from happening.
Right before Tribal though, Stephanie suspects that something is up and tries to ask Ian about it, and he lies and denies poorly, but Stephanie doesn't really suspect anything from him specifically.
I mean, we all agree that it was Janu tonight, and Janu wants it to be her, but for some reason I have a feeling it's me. I don't think so. I don't think so.
for you.
Tribal Council is pretty mundane. Stephanie sees clear as day that everyone wants her gone. Everyone talks about it. Tom, Greg, it's pretty straightforward. And then in a major twist, Janu throws a wrench into everyone's plans as she quits the game in part to save Stephanie. On the flip side, Ian is still safe.
Janu, why keep you?
No reason, they can get rid of me.
You are on your own quitting this game.
Yes, Jeff. I will lay down my torch this evening.
Janu, per your wishes, this game is over for you, but you will not go home. You'll return and be a part of our jury.
Thank you, Jeff.
Episode 11 starts a bit awkward as Stephanie isn't stupid. She knows that if Janu didn't quit, then she would have been voted out. But Tom does his best to convince her that no, we were definitely going to get rid of Janu anyways, and not you.
Let me tell you, would have gone the same way. She would have been going home.
You
After
think?
what happened.
After that?
Yes.
Really? Yeah.
The next day at camp, Tom makes a weird plea when he asks everyone, please don't target me just because I'm good at challenges. He says he only did it to keep Karor safe, which would be a fine plea if this were the pre-merge still, but he just got off the heels of winning back-to-back individual immunity challenges. It's pretty silly, and even Ian sees this as silly.
Don't give me the Tom's a threat, we gotta get rid of him line. I'd hate to go under those terms. I said, listen, my game was revealed because I was playing real hard for the tribe. I said, don't hold it against me now and don't make me pay for coming out so strong early.
Gosh, the fact that he's winning, it totally makes him a target.
I know, and he's like, don't make it. No one's ever won because they won.
There's a reason why no one's ever won.
The beloved Survivor auction is finally upon us, and Ian wins himself a plate of spaghetti, and the excitement is just too much for him to bear, so he hugs Jeff Probst, who is blown away by just how badly Ian smells.
Please. Take a bite. Wow, you smell, Ian. Wow, you reek.
Back at camp, Ian takes Jeff's words to heart as he finally goes out and bathes himself. He does get himself a little brotherly love from Greg, which does cause a bit of fun as everyone observes this happening.
Jeff commented that I reek pretty bad, so today is bath day. In honor of Jeff Probst, who noted that I definitely stink.
I think it's pretty comical. I think they could have asked a girl to loop at their backs if they wanted to.
I'm comfortable with my sexuality, it's not a big deal.
At the immunity challenge, it is not Tom who wins for once, but instead it is Ian, keeping Stephanie, their #1 target, quite vulnerable.
Going for green. And instead he takes out red, which is Ian. Ian wins immunity. Congratulations. Ian, safe from the vote tonight. Everybody else fair game. I'll see you at Tribal.
However, lots of talks begin happening back at camp, and Katie actively works on forming an all-women's alliance that could decimate the 3 remaining men and have the women become the final 4.
We have 4 and they have 3. I hate to do it, but I knew that I'd have to jump ship at some point.
But this is definitely not going to happen, as Karen then reveals Katie's plans to Tom, which really shows which alliance she is loyal to.
What do you hear?
Just that the girls are talking.
What do the girls say?
Trying to figure out which guy to take out.
I think everybody's starting to play the game, and Karen's kind of telling stories to everybody and trying to get away into a situation where she can be on top. So my mind's going about 4.5 miles a minute, and I'm trying to figure out what the next best move is.
Tom then talks to Katie about this, and she realizes that Karen sucks. That's her words, not mine. And since an all-women's alliance can't happen, her and Ian then pledge their loyalty to each other.
Karen's spreading that you're trying to get all the girls against the guys.
I don't know what he's saying this morning.
I'm strong. Listen, Karen's spreading a lie. I'm getting really pissed off.
We can't get a female alliance together because Karen sucks.
I'm still 100% true to you. Like, I'm
Yeah,
not.
me too. I just feel really bad about the Tom thing.
Katie does try to warn Ian, though, that they do need to take Tom out sooner rather than later, as he could easily win all of the remaining immunities and easily win the entire game. Ian disagrees with her, though, on this.
I just hate for it to be such a sweep and Tom just takes the whole thing and none of us have a chance.
It's not gonna happen that way.
At Tribal Council, Oolong is finally completely wiped off the face of Palau as Stephanie is voted out 6-1.
Steph, tribe has spoken. Time to go.
With only Karor members left and no one of the Minority Alliance remaining, the rest of the game will become dog-eat-dog until the final 2. The question is, can Ian adapt his gameplay to the more ruthless style that will be needed to survive? Episode 12 begins with a strange, almost out-of-place confessional that can only mean one thing for Ian from a storytelling perspective. He is likely going to do the opposite of this, or he will do it and it will hurt him.
What if you can take somebody with you? I did make a promise to my girl. Katie and I promised each other if we won a challenge, we'd take each other if we have the ability, and That's what we're gonna do today.
At the reward challenge, something else happens entirely, as Katie apparently doesn't value her relationship with Ian like he values it with her, and she finishes him off and knocks him out of the reward challenge entirely so that she can go on the yacht.
Would you hate me? Would you hate
Yes.
me?
You got it. There we go.
It's true.
Come over here, buddy.
Back at camp, he wisely deduces that, if Katie won't even stay true to her word at the reward challenge for a night on a yacht, she definitely won't keep her word when it comes to who she will go to the end of this game with for $1 million. And based on what we have seen so far of how she actively tries to work the women to flip on the men, this is all true.
Today at the challenge, Katie chose to throw me into the water rather than Greg. And I said, wow, that's interesting. If Katie's willing to sell me out for a night on a yacht, there's no way she's gonna hold on to me for $1 million.
He then talks to Tom and Karen and says now is the time to strike. Jen and Greg flipping would completely turn this game on its head, causing a 3-3 tie if they do it with Katie. He then paints Greg as an unbeatable force if he were to sit at Final Tribal, and Tom says, well, then it is settled. We're voting out Greg next.
I think Greg is a dark horse right now. Nobody would vote against him in the final two.
Nobody.
You can go for Greg tomorrow night.
Tom and Ian decide it is worth going to Rocks to make this move happen. It would be 3 votes Greg, 3 votes Karen. They suspect Katie will flip though and vote Greg to save her skin before Rocks will ever need to be drawn, but they are still willing to pull Rocks if need be.
I can go to tribal council willing to take the rock. You know what I mean? Like, I'm willing to make that gamble. I came to play a game. We have a plan. Tom and I have decided that we're going to force a tie to tribal council. It's a delicate operation that needs to be handled with the utmost of care. This is kind of like taking a bag of potato chips from a fat man. You can do it, but you better do it quick, otherwise he's gonna turn around and sit on you.
We then cut to Greg, Jen, and Katie yucking it up on the yacht with their family members, and Ian's fears are indeed confirmed as Katie says she will flip.
No, the only person that's really gonna do sneaky stuff is me, because I'm jumping away from Tom and Ian to you guys.
Thankfully for Ian, he does pull off the immunity win, ensuring that if Katie does flip tonight, it sure isn't going to be on him.
Ian wins immunity. Thank you. Nicely done.
Thanks.
Back-to-back challenges. Safe tonight at Tribal Council.
Greg then tries to see what everyone's plans are for Tribal. Tom and Ian are pretending, yeah, it's Karen, basic what we were going to do anyways, easy vote. But Ian slips when talking to Greg, and Tom immediately swoops in and saves his butt from having Greg think anything is up.
I think it'll be interesting how the whole thing plays out. Interesting or? No, just it's gonna be, yeah.
It's always interesting.
Mere minutes before Tribal Council, Ian makes one of his best moves all game as he says, hey Katie, can you come talk with me? He says the target tonight is not Karen, it's Greg, and we're willing to go to Rocks to make this happen. Katie is upset, but he leaves her with so little time before Tribal that she cannot digest this information and talk to Greg about it without exposing that she was really planning to flip on Ian.
Karen and Tom, and I are gonna vote for Greg. Yeah.
What?
Yeah, we're flipping the game around. We're gonna force a tie unless you vote Greg.
If it's a tie, then what happens?
Goes to Rocks.
The reason Ian wants me with him in the end is so he'll win. Tom wants the same thing.
At Tribal Council, no rocks are needed, as Greg is voted out 4-2.
Greg, Tribal spoken. Something to go.
Episode 13 begins, and Ian's top concern is that all 3 girls will band together and create an all-women's alliance. Katie tried it once, why wouldn't she try it again? So him and Tom talk and agree that if one of them wins reward today, then they will take Katie or Karen with them so that all 3 girls don't have time together to talk.
If one of us gets to choose one other person, we can't choose each other on this one. We've got to take one of the girls out of the mix so that they're not going to be able to talk to each other.
As it turns out, this reward is for a brand new Chevrolet Corvette, easily the nicest vehicle the show has ever given away up to this point. Ian wins, and who does he pick to go on the reward with him?
Who would you like to take with you?
Well, I made a deal if there was a car involved that I would take Tom. I told Katie yesterday that I'd take her, but I shook hands on it with him. I made a promise to him.
In a surprising move that makes no sense from a storytelling standpoint so far, Ian picks Tom. We then see how Katie is completely betrayed by Ian and says that she just lost her best friend in this entire game. A little dramatic, really painting Ian as the bad guy despite what she did to him for a lesser reward.
Pulled me aside yesterday and was like, I'm telling you right now, choose you over Tom. You and I had a bond the first day. And then he took Tom. And I feel like I lost my best friend out here. He won, and he picked Tom. And so it meant my biggest, closest ally out here is gone. And that really bums me out. You just left 3 women
and a
Alone.
really upset, like one really
friend of
upset
yours
best friend
together?
don't go there.
The three women get to talking, and just as Tom and Ian feared, much is being said to hurt their respective games, including Karen just info dumping everything she knows to Jen, and the women then say yes, let's vote out a guy next, namely Tom, and it looks like Katie is the ringleader of all of this.
If it's Ian, we vote out Tom.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
And if it's
Absolutely.
Tom, we vote out Ian.
That's right.
Immediately upon arriving back at camp, Karen bombards Ian, knowing he's the easier one to crack between him and Tom, and she asks, is the final three with her or is it with Katie? And I want an answer immediately. Ian slips up, and Karen isn't reassured at all.
Is it you, me, Tom, or is it you, me, Katie?
It's gonna be you, me, and Tom. We're all playing the game. So, I mean, I can't give you an answer right now. It would be unfair for me.
I appreciate
You just gave away her vote tonight.
I don't think so.
You just screwed up.
This next moment is very dramatic, and the editing, emotions, and musical choices really drive how this is a touching fight / makeup between Ian and Katie. Ian declares to Katie about how he is committed to her until the very end. He's never flipped on her. And Katie says she doesn't care about anything, Ian. Nothing, except that you lied to me about that reward. Her overreaction to this lie does seem a bit hypocritical given her intention and how she's actually tried to flip on him, well, at least once, and Tom multiple times. Ian definitely gets emotionally manipulated. He does his best to apologize and ultimately succeeds, as this gets him back in good with Katie.
I had every intention from the very beginning of this game to take you to the final two, and I told you that.
For you to come to me and tell me, Stan, this is good for you at home and blah. Oh, and by the way, we're voting off Greg. Nice intro.
Over and above the mistake that I made, that I hope you can forgive me for, I'm gonna try to be your friend for the rest of my life. And if you don't want it, that's fine. I'll do my damnedest not to be stupid again.
We then see Tom talk to Katie and take almost the complete opposite approach of Ian, and essentially one that doesn't work, as he tries to Boston rob her and instill some fear, and she is not swayed at all.
So the only thing now is to threaten her back into the fold by telling her, if you betray us after we carried you in those early days with your hands ripped up.
Tom sucks today. He's being mean. He's like threatening, and it's like cold. I don't like it.
It's Survivor. Not Parcheesi.
Tom goes on to win immunity, so the women's intended target is not happening. At Tribal Council, Ian begins to get eviscerated by the women, and it is clearly getting to him. Some accusations are true, but most are just dumb and untrue, like him being accused of intending to vote for Katie and Jen, which he denies, and what he is saying does line up with what we have seen so far.
And I want to make it clear that I've never had any intentions of voting off Katie, and Jen for that matter.
It's baloney.
That's not true.
Katie then takes the opportunity to paint Ian as a villain to the jury for his timing of telling Katie they were voting out Greg only minutes before Tribal and not hours.
Why didn't Katie know?
But what's the benefit to me to Katie not knowing 10 minutes before or 3 hours before?
Because you're telling me. You're telling me what's happening rather than me saying, okay, let me think on that. Maybe I might want to go with Jen and Greg.
The game move he made was the right one. Why give her the time to flip the script? But this all comes back to haunt him socially here. Karen is then voted out 4-1, proving that Katie nor Jen were the target.
Karen, Travis spoken. It's time for you to go.
It is finale time. Tom versus Ian versus Katie versus Jen. Will Ian be able to make it to the final two while still maintaining his good guy persona in the eyes of everyone, including himself? Well, he does recognize what happened at the last Tribal Council. He's no fool.
At Tribal last night, I got a lot of heat. My stock in the jury has gone down, but going into the final four, I don't think you want to be necessarily the person with the highest stock with the jury, because right now, I'm not the biggest target. Tom is.
The wheels are turning, and Ian decides now is the time to make the one move he needs to make in order to be sure he can win it all. It's time to vote out Tom.
This is the moment that I've been waiting for the entire game. So I win the challenge, Tom goes home. I don't win the challenge, Tom's all of a sudden my best friend again.
Unfortunately, Katie's warning of Tom making an immunity run to the end is coming true, as he wins immunity again, ensuring someone else will be voted out instead of him.
Tom wins immunity!
Back at camp, Ian makes an even bigger flub than that time he did with Greg, where Tom was able to save his butt, except this one is especially killer to him in his game, as he says, it's a good thing, Tom, that you won immunity, otherwise I would have had a really hard decision to make tonight.
I'm sad, I think I just made a decision that might cost me $1 million.
Well, if I would have won immunity today, it'd have been a really difficult decision for me too, Tom. So
Ian, so lovable, but way too open with his thoughts and feelings. Jen affirms to Tom that what Ian has said is true. Tom then talks to Ian and he does himself absolutely no favors.
Oh, I'm sorry, you didn't know, but that was the deal. That was the deal. If you have lost today, the three of us were gonna vote you out.
What did you say? Tell me what you said.
I told them that if I won immunity today, that I was gonna vote you up. But Tom.
At Tribal Council, Ian is once again getting torn to shreds by the others, and it is clear that now even Tom is upset with him. Jeff asks Ian if at least he was honest about all this, which Ian lies and says, yes, I was honest with Tom, I told him everything truthful. But then Tom calls him out on this. Meanwhile, the jury watches and judges.
Did at any point you go to your strongest ally in day 2 and say, listen, just want to give you a heads up. This is what's being talked about. I'm playing into it. I'll keep you informed.
Absolutely.
So why is this a surprise to you, Tom, if Ian told you all this?
He didn't tell me that.
I never intended on going back on Tom. I never intended it. I intended on taking Tom and Katie to the final 3, or working with Tom and Katie to get to the final 3.
Ian then lies to Katie, which frankly is a pure guess based on the way he is answering her question. Him stopping and thinking about it is a huge telltale sign. The issue with all this is that Ian wants to make big, smart game moves, and he is doing them, but is getting strung up by his own mouth and promises he has made to people.
Have you lied to me in the last 24 hours? Straight out.
Have I lied to you in the past 24 hours? No. Straight out.
The votes are revealed, and despite what Katie has done to him in front of the jury, she does vote with him, and it is actually Jen and Tom who vote against him, causing a tie.
Jen, we're tied.
They then do a revote, and that changes nothing, so the new tie-breaking rule of a fire-making duel commences with whoever burns through their rope first wins. It is intense as Ian's entire game now comes down to this one duel.
Go. Ian has a big flame, but a lot of that is just coconut husk burning. And there it is. Ian stays in this game.
Jen is eliminated, and back at camp, they're now down to the final 3. Ian continues to lie, now for no reason other than maybe trying to save face.
Tell me the truth, which is that you weren't going with me to the final 3 to duke it out like men.
Gosh, Tom, you're twisting the truth.
I'm twisting the truth? Come on. You gotta be kidding me.
And this just continually upsets Tom and Katie, but especially Tom. What's worse is that either Tom or Katie will be on the jury if Ian is in the final 2, and no doubt they will tell the jury everything about what Ian has done.
And you are crucifying me for a decision that I didn't even make.
You didn't get the chance. You had the immunity necklace. I'm home taking a shower right now.
This is all wearing Ian down, and he doesn't like it. His goal with playing this game was not to be viewed as a bad person who lies and backstabs his way to the top. That just isn't Ian.
Last night was probably one of the worst nights of my life. Like, it shouldn't be like this. Like, I didn't come out here to play the villain. I didn't come out here to be the backstabber, especially those two.
It is time for the final immunity challenge. Stand on a buoy as long as possible. Whoever is left standing wins. And about 5 hours into the challenge, yes, 5 hours, Katie drops out and it is down to just Tom and Ian. These two have been physically dominating these immunity challenges all game, and it is only fitting that they are the last 2 remaining.
Tom and Ian. Last 2 left standing, last immunity challenge with everything you two have been through.
Tom then offers Ian a deal, and Ian offers him a counter deal in return.
If I beat you at this event, I'm taking Katie to the final. You step off that perch, I'm taking you.
Tell you what, you jump first, we have a deal.
After almost 12 hours, that's right, yes, right under 12 hours, Ian makes a decision to ease his conscience and decides to make a game-changing decision, as what matters to him is not the $1 million. He just wants to earn everyone's respect and friendship back. Ian does not want to be a villain.
I'll go now if you take Katie. And I'll give up the $1 million to get back your guys' friendship. I can't leave this game with that on my shoulder, so I'll dive right now if you take Katie.
Would it be successful?
Ian would have my friendship after this game anyway, but he wins my respect back.
He and Tom swim back to the platform, and Tom cracks a joke and they hug.
I was about to fall off too. I'm surprised you did that.
Oh my God.
However, despite achieving his goal of earning respect and friendship, he wants Tom to vote him out, so he does.
Are you taking yourself out and...
We made a deal. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you guys need to go to the final 2.
So let's break this down. How is Ian as a character? A lovable goofball. Don't let what happened at the very end fool you. He was never a villain, no matter how much everyone tried to paint him as one. Ian loved being friends with people, encouraging them, doing goofy dances, cracking jokes, and bringing food in for the tribe. Pretty much no one had any bad words to say about him until the very end, when essentially they took advantage of his sweet nature by bullying him. Ian's presence on this season stands out and cements yet another character we love, going just shy of Final Tribal Council. Out of 30 character moments shown on the show, 23 were heroic and 7 were villainous, making Ian Rosenberger a hero character on Survivor Palau. Now, how is Ian as a strategist? When he played without fear of what others thought of him, he did great. He didn't have to do much until Stephanie came over from Oolong, but he did solidify himself in the majority alliance and recognized every potential threat along the way. Between him and Tom, they handled anything that came their way. He saw through his friendship with Katie to see how quickly she would betray him and knew that moves needed to be made, and he made them. No matter how much Katie tries to paint him as someone who betrayed their friendship, she did it first and far more often. Unfortunately for Ian, his desire to be liked outweighed his strategic prowess, and it was his downfall for his shot to win $1 million. However, I will never begrudge him for making that call. Life is worth a lot more than money. Out of 40 strategic moments shown on the show, 26 were smart and 14 were dumb, making Ian Rosenberger a smart strategist on Survivor Palau. Thanks for watching, and if you like the content you see here, then please consider supporting me and this channel on Patreon. Your financial support makes this channel possible, so thank you, and thank you for watching.